What's up, guys? It's John from Caesar Self-Reliance, and today I'm going to be doing a video on my favorite ways to carry trauma supplies. One just being your basic trauma kit, mainly bleeding control. It's not going to be like a first aid kit with band-aids and over-the-counter medications and ointments and stuff like that. These are going to be focused strictly on major trauma, hemorrhage control, and bleeding. And these are my two favorite ways to carry it. One is for outdoors, um, on the boat, around water, hunting or whatnot, something that's rugged and will protect your medical supplies. And the other is actually a ankle medical kit, which you can wear around your ankle when you're going places. And we're just going to jump right into it. But before I get started, I'm going to kind of qualify myself. Um, I'm just a small town EMT for 7 years full time. So I have a decent amount of experience in bleeding control and trauma, especially in the rural setting, where our response times are much longer. So with 7 years of that, I feel like I have a pretty good idea of how a good trauma kit can be set up. So without any further ado, we'll just jump into it. We'll start with this Pelican 1200 case right here. I have my trauma supplies in here for a couple of reasons. One, it's super rugged. Two, it's actually waterproof, completely watertight. It will float in water. And the reason I chose this case is because it's nearly indestructible, and I'll roll in some footage of us, trying to torture this thing, and you're not going to break it. And especially if you have expensive trauma supplies, you don't have to worry about it getting left outside, getting rained on, falling in the water, or falling off a buggy, etc. when you're hunting or fishing or doing anything outdoors.
Look at it.
We'll go ahead and jump straight into this one. And this one right here, right off the bat on top, I have the gasket actually came off right here. And I'll have to glue that back in. So right off the bat on top, I have the two kind of most important things, and those are tourniquets. Normally when you need a tourniquet, you need it right now. That's why I have these on top, easily accessible. I have them staged in a way that I can deploy them quickly. And tourniquets, if you aren't familiar with them, are for massive bleeding control on the extremities, so the arms and legs, of course. And these will be applied on the arms above where the bleeding is in order to cut off the circulation to the rest of that limb, and therefore stopping the bleeding and saving life. And move on to the next, I guess, most important thing. This would be rolled gauze. This one is for like wound packing in the junctional areas. So if you have a injury or penetrating trauma anywhere in the junctional areas, like the shoulders or the hips, the groin, you're not able to put a tourniquet up that high. So with these, we will actually pack gauze into those wounds, and then we'll wrap it up and just hold pressure to control that bleeding. So I have these in there next. And the next thing I have in here is a emergency blanket. Trauma patients are cold patients. When they've lost blood, they are losing body heat as well. Even in 90-degree weather outside, a trauma patient can become hypothermic. And when their body temperature drops, the blood clotting cascade actually starts to fail, and it's much harder to control the bleeding. And so you always want to keep your trauma patients warm when they're in shock. So I have an emergency blanket right here. And I also have a couple of chest seals. This is the Lightning X brand. It's a cheaper brand, but the ones I recommend are the hyphen vents. These are vented chest seals. So if you aren't familiar with chest seals, when there's any penetrating trauma to the chest or abdomen. You never want to pack gauze or anything into penetrating trauma in the abdomen or the chest, because your abdomen and chest are contained of mostly hollow organs. So no matter how much gauze you pack in there, you're just going to fill the cavity up and you're not going to stop the bleeding. But you do want to control what's called a two things. In the abdomen, you can have what's called an evisceration, which is where the organs can actually start to come out of the body, and sealing that off either with a seal or wrapping it around with something called an abdominal pad will prevent that. But the thing that can kill quick, other than hemorrhage, is what's called a pneumothorax, which means there's penetrating trauma to the chest or the back here in the pleural cavity. And when there's a hole in the chest or the back, the negative pressure that makes your lungs move up and down will actually suck air into the chest cavity, causing the lungs to collapse, either one or both lungs. And placing a seal on the chest will prevent that from happening. These particular seals are vented, so they will allow air to escape, but not to come back in, therefore preventing the collapsed lung. So chest seals are great. You should definitely have those. Next, I have a burn dressing. This is just basically gauze with a analgesic added to it and a gel. It's kind of cooling and soothing for burns. So if you have a burn, on an extremity or wherever, just put this on there, wrap it up, and then seek medical care from there. So burn dressing, very important. Also for um, your trauma that does not require a chest seal or a tourniquet, that can just be controlled with direct pressure, just like say you get a cut on the arm and you can control the bleeding by just holding direct pressure. With those, I carry 4x4 gauze pads. These are sterile. So you would just place this, one or multiple of these, on the wound, and then you would take this stretch gauze that's rolled up right here and you would wrap it around it to control that bleeding. And if that controls the bleeding, just seek medical care from there. So I have the 4x4 sterile gauze. I have the stretch roll gauze. And then I have a triangle bandage. Triangle bandage can be used for a lot of different things. In EMS, we use them for splinting injuries, creating slings and swaths. Like if you have a dislocated shoulder or a broken arm, you can put it up tight to the chest and create a sling that can stabilize that injury until you can seek medical care. So that's very good for that. Also keep two chem lights or glow sticks, as some might call them, in here for a couple of reasons. One, if you are in a situation where you have no light and this is your only source of light that you have, it can come in very handy. In pitch black dark, these are actually very bright and you can see a lot of what you're doing. So I have a green one and I also have a yellow one. The color doesn't particularly matter, but I do like to have these, especially in an austere environment like in the outdoors. If you have to flag down EMS at night, or it's a medevac helicopter or something, you can crack one of these and you can wave it in the air, to flag down for help, as well as just use it to navigate what you're doing when you're hands on. And the last thing I have is a CPR mask. I spend a lot of time around water, fishing, boating, and even at water parks. Having one of these handy is really good, to keep in a bag or a purse or something. And this is pretty self-explanatory. It's a CPR mask. So if you're doing CPR on somebody, you can use this to breathe for them. It just goes around their head and you blow into it. You reposition the airway and you blow into it, to get air into their lungs when you're doing CPR. These are dirt cheap and they don't take up much space. So I like to have one of these in the case of a drowning or in the case of a cardiac arrest, to where I can do, relatively adequate CPR until help arrives. And that's pretty much it as far as this kit goes. I do have some more of the sterile gauze in here that I didn't pull out, but that's that's it for that. There's really nothing else I would add to it. You can add something like this, which is a spear decompression needle. This one has seen better days, but These can help treat a collapsed lung, but you would only use one of these if you have the appropriate training. Um, because if you use this inappropriately, you can actually do more damage and potentially, unalive somebody with this if you're not using it appropriately. So, although I do keep this in there, it's not something I would recommend for the average person unless you have extensive training on it. So, go ahead and put all this stuff out of the way. And then we will move on to my everyday carry trauma kit. All right, so we've moved on to this one. This is my Lynx Defense Ankle Medical Kit, and this is one that I carry every day, or at least most days. And this one, just like it sounds, it's designed to be carried, on your ankle. That way, you have at least some type of trauma supplies on you at all times. And the cool thing about this is you can have two, one on each ankle. You can have either extra supplies in one, or just two medical kits that are identical. So we'll go ahead and run through this, and I'll show you how I have it set up. So to start off in here, we'll just start off with the large pouch. This one is going to have chest seals. These chest seals are nearly identical to the hyphen chest seals I showed you in the larger medical kit, except these are the compact version. It does have two, so when they're penetrating trauma to the chest, you can have one on the front, one on the back, and these just are really great to always have on you. The next thing I'll have is some compressed gauze. This is similar to the rolled gauze, except it's compressed very tight and vacuum sealed, so that when you open this up, it actually expands, and you can use this for packing wounds in the junctional areas like we discussed earlier, like the shoulders, the groin, and the hips. So I have that compressed gauze. That's great for bleeding control. So next we'll move on to this. This is called a SWAT T tourniquet. This is a large elastic tourniquet that is very compact, and it's called SWAT because it stands for stretch, wrap, and tuck, which is exactly how you use it. Like I said, it's more or less a large rubber band, and you just wrap it around the extremity as tight as you can a couple of times, then you tuck it underneath itself, and it cinches down. And this actually does a very good job of controlling bleeding. We've trained with it, and it does as advertised. I do keep this one in the package, unlike my other tourniquets, because this one is made of rubber. It can dry out, essentially dry rot. So I keep it in the package, but it's super compact. Even if you don't have a medical kit, learning how to use one of these, which the instructions are right on the back, learning how to use one of these and keeping it on you is never a bad idea. So move on from that. Also, I have another emergency blanket because, like I said, trauma patients get cold, and you want to keep that blood clotting cascade intact when you're trying to control bleeding, and you don't want your patient to become hypothermic and go further into shock. So we'll move on from there. And the last couple of things I have is just some rolled gauze right here. These are great for, you can use them for wound packing, but more so these will be for your smaller trauma that doesn't require massive hemorrhage control. Like if you get a cut on the arm, you can place either one of these or some of the compressed gauze on there, and then you can wrap it up and control the bleeding that way. But that's pretty much it. That pretty much sums it up. I showed you my two preferred ways of carrying trauma supplies. Like I said, my 7 years of EMS, I've, I guess, been unfortunate enough to deal with some major traumas, especially in our rural areas, considering I do work in a very rural setting. So having these supplies on you is very paramount. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you on the next one.